Eleanor Morgan pulled into the parking lot of Precision Point, the most prestigious shooting facility in the region. Her modest sedan looked out of place among the luxury vehicles and pickup trucks with custom paint jobs. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. At 42, she still maintained the disciplined posture from her military days, though nothing in her faded jeans and simple blouse suggested her background. The facility's glass doors slid open to reveal a gleaming interior that smelled of gun oil and expensive leather. Men in tactical gear clustered around the reception area, their conversations ceasing momentarily as she approached the counter. "Membership application?" the receptionist asked, barely looking up. "Yes, please." Eleanor's voice was soft but clear. While filling out the forms, she studied the facility through discreet glances. The main range featured 20 lanes with advanced target systems. A separate section housed simulation rooms, and judging by the signage, there were specialized courses for different skill levels. Commander Roy Briggs emerged from an office, his presence immediately commanding attention. His military short hair and rigid posture marked him as the authority figure. Everyone straightened slightly when he entered the room. At his side walked Blake Donovan, younger and dressed in expensive shooting gear emblazoned with sponsor logos. "You'll want the basic safety course," the receptionist said, sliding a brochure toward Eleanor. "First-timers start there." "I've handled firearms before," Eleanor replied. This caught Donovan's attention. He nudged his companion and approached the counter with an evaluating gaze. "Handled firearms," he repeated with amusement. "Like what?" "A pink 22 at a carnival." Several men nearby chuckled. "Something like that," Eleanor replied evenly, though her fingers tightened around her pen. Briggs stepped forward, scanning her application. "Morgan, is it?" "Well, Mrs. Morgan, this isn't like shooting at cans in the backyard. We maintain professional standards." "I understand." "Good. Blake here is our top instructor. He's preparing for the Regional Precision Challenge next month. Defending champion." Briggs clapped Donovan on the shoulder with evident pride. Donovan made a show of examining Eleanor's form. "Let me guess. Husband's idea. Looking for a hobby." "Widow, actually." Eleanor kept her expression neutral. "My own idea." Something flickered in Briggs's eyes, perhaps recognition, quickly suppressed, before he nodded professionally. "Start in lane 1. Basic safety orientation. Donovan can spare 5 minutes to get you set up." As they walked toward the range, Eleanor caught fragments of their whispered conversation. "Waste of time. Probably can't even hold a proper stance." "Just do it. Good PR to help the community." Eleanor said nothing, merely observed the facility's layout, the security cameras, the staff patterns. Her muscles remembered a different kind of vigilance, from years spent in environments where observation meant survival. Donovan handed her the lightest pistol from the rack, explaining the basics as if to a child. "This one has almost no recoil. Try not to drop it." His smirk invited the other instructors to share his amusement. Eleanor nodded, accepting his condescension with practiced patience. What none of them knew, what they couldn't possibly suspect, was that her late husband Nathan had died under Briggs's command in a classified operation 3 years ago. The official report cited operational necessity for decisions that had cost 6 lives. As she lifted the pistol, deliberately allowing a slight tremor in her hands, Eleanor focused on the singular purpose that had brought her here: justice for Nathan. Step 1 was infiltrating Briggs's world. And nobody paid attention to women they underestimated. A week into her membership, Eleanor had established a predictable routine. She arrived each afternoon, practiced with deliberate mediocrity, and absorbed every detail of the facility's operations. She maintained the persona of an earnest but untalented shooter, someone the regulars could dismiss or, at best, patronize. On Tuesday, she was adjusting her stance when Donovan appeared beside her. "You're holding too tight," he said, voice carrying so others could hear his expertise, and your elbows locked. Here. Without asking permission, he stepped into her space, repositioning her arms with unnecessary contact. Eleanor allowed the correction while mentally counting the many ways she could have incapacitated him from this position. Better, he declared. Try again. She fired, deliberately hitting the outer ring of the target. Donovan sighed theatrically. Well, persistence is admirable, I suppose. From 2 lanes over, another instructor called out, "Some people aren't meant for this, Blake. Maybe suggest knitting instead." Laughter rippled through the range as Eleanor's cheeks flushed. Not from embarrassment, but from controlled anger. She lowered the pistol, keeping her expression neutral. "Thank you for the guidance," she said quietly. "Don't mention it." Donovan straightened his designer shooting jacket. "Hey, staying for the demonstration later?" Commander Briggs is showing the tactical team some advanced techniques. Might be educational, even for beginners. Eleanor nodded. "I'd like that." Later, seated at the back of the observation area, she watched Briggs command the room. His presentation was flawless, his expertise evident. Yet subtle inconsistencies emerged between his recounted military experiences and what Eleanor knew of the operations he referenced. Each carefully constructed anecdote omitted critical details that would have cast different light on his decisions. After the demonstration, participants crowded around Briggs with questions and admiration. Eleanor approached cautiously, waiting her turn. "Commander Briggs, I just wanted to say how informative that was." He glanced at her, recognition dawning. "Morgan, right? Glad you found it helpful. Though much of it won't be relevant for someone at your level. I was particularly interested in your experience with unit command decisions. My husband served overseas as well." Briggs's expression shifted subtly. "Is that so? What unit?" "Classified operations." He didn't talk much about it. Something hardened in his gaze. "Well, military spouses often have limited understanding of what happens in the field. Decisions must be made quickly, sometimes with incomplete information." "Of course," Eleanor agreed. "Though accountability remains important, doesn't it?" Before Briggs could respond, Donovan interrupted. "Commander, the sponsors for the Precision Challenge are on the line. They want to discuss the promotional materials." Briggs nodded, seemingly relieved by the interruption. "Excuse me, Mrs. Morgan." As they walked away, Eleanor overheard Donovan ask, "What was that about?" "Nothing. Just another military widow with opinions she's not qualified to have." The dismissal stung, even though she had anticipated it. Eleanor gathered her belongings, maintaining her unassuming demeanor while cataloging every detail of their exchange. In the parking lot, she sat in her car for several minutes, breathing deeply to manage her anger. On the passenger seat lay a folder containing her real credentials. Lieutenant Eleanor Morgan, Special Forces sniper with 17 confirmed high-value eliminations. Training records that surpassed even Briggs's. And most importantly, communications logs that contradicted the official report of Nathan's final mission. She started the car, reminding herself that patience was the foundation of every successful mission. The first conflict had occurred exactly as planned. Briggs had revealed his dismissiveness, and no one suspected her true capabilities. By the 3rd week, Eleanor had become a familiar presence at Precision Point. Familiar enough to be ignored, yet consistent enough that her absence would be noticed. She maintained her calculated mediocrity, improving just enough to seem earnest, but never enough to draw serious attention. Until today. "Attention, members," Briggs announced over the facility's speaker system. "Registration for the Precision Challenge qualifier opens tomorrow. Top 3 advance to the regional competition." The range immediately buzzed with excitement. Eleanor listened as Donovan held court nearby. "Qualifying round is basically a formality for me," he boasted. "Commander Briggs wants fresh competition, but let's be realistic." His entourage laughed on cue. Eleanor approached the registration desk, during a quiet moment. "I'd like to register for the qualifier," she said. The attendant looked up in surprise. "The Precision Challenge? That's our advanced competition. I understand. It requires significant skill level documentation or instructor recommendation. I've been practicing here for weeks. Can I request an evaluation?" The attendant glanced toward Donovan, who had overheard the exchange. He sauntered over with an incredulous expression. "You want to enter the qualifier?" His voice carried deliberately, drawing attention from nearby shooters. Eleanor maintained her composure. "Yes, I know I'm not at your level, but I'd like the experience." Donovan laughed, inviting others to join. "The experience of embarrassment, matey. This isn't a participation trophy event, Morgan. It's for serious competitors." "The registration doesn't specify minimum qualifications," she noted. "Because it's understood." His amusement hardened into annoyance. "Fine. You need an instructor evaluation. I'll do it now and save you the paperwork." He gestured toward an empty lane. A small audience gathered, drawn by Donovan's performative assessment. "Show me your best grouping at 30 yards, he instructed, folding his arms. Eleanor lifted the rental pistol, took aim, and fired 6 rounds. The grouping was deliberately imperfect, better than her previous performances, but still underwhelming. Donovan made a show of examining the target. As expected, not even close to qualifying standard. He turned to the gathered spectators. "This is why evaluation matters. Prevents wasting everyone's time." The public rejection stung exactly as intended. Eleanor blinked rapidly, simulating emotional control. "I see. Thank you for your time." As she gathered her belongings, she overheard Donovan speaking to Briggs, who had approached during the evaluation. "Can you believe it? Next thing, my grandmother will want to compete." Briggs's response was measured. "Everyone has the right to try, Blake, but standards exist for a reason." His gaze lingered on Eleanor for a moment too long. That evening, Eleanor made her first unscheduled visit to the facility, arriving after normal hours. She spotted a maintenance worker checking lane equipment. "Excuse me?" The front desk said I left my phone charger here. The worker looked up. Travis Wynn, according to his name tag, a quiet presence she'd observed throughout her reconnaissance. "Haven't seen one," he replied, then lowered his voice. "But I saw what happened earlier." Donovan's an entitled jerk. "It's fine," Eleanor said cautiously. Travis glanced toward the security cameras. "Those work, but they don't record sound." He stepped closer. "I served too. I recognize the look. You're not what you're pretending to be." Eleanor's muscles tensed, ready for potential confrontation. "Relax," Travis continued. "Your secret's safe. But if you're interested, there's a back range we use after hours. No cameras, no audience. Could help you prepare for whatever you're really here for." His knowing gaze suggested he understood more than he was saying. "Why would you help me?" Eleanor asked. "Let's just say I've got my own issues with how Briggs runs things around here," Travis replied. "Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Staff entrance." As he walked away, Eleanor realized the conflict had expanded beyond her control. Someone had seen through her disguise. But instead of exposure, she'd gained an unexpected ally, and potentially access to the practice she truly needed. The qualifier for the Precision Challenge was 3 days away when Eleanor arrived for her regular practice session. Despite her rejection, she maintained her routine, knowing consistency was vital to recover. The atmosphere at the range felt different immediately. Staff members exchanged glances as she entered. Donovan and his usual group huddled near the lockers, their conversation ceasing when they spotted her. Eleanor proceeded to her usual lane, but found it occupied. In fact, all beginner and intermediate lanes were suddenly full. Strange, given the time of day. Something wrong? The desk attendant asked with artificial concern. "Just looking for an open lane." "Sorry, we're unusually busy." Maybe try coming back later. Eleanor nodded and turned to leave, catching Donovan's smirk from across the room. This was deliberate, the first active move to push her out. In the parking lot, she found a note tucked under her windshield wiper. Check your email. Her laptop revealed a message from Precision Point Management. Commander Briggs himself. Mrs. Morgan, it has come to our attention that certain discrepancies exist in your membership application. Until these can be addressed, your access is temporarily restricted. Please contact administration to schedule a review. The manufactured excuse was transparent. Someone, likely Briggs, had begun investigating her background and wanted to control the interaction. The timing was suspicious, coming immediately after her qualifier request. Eleanor closed her laptop, considering her options. The night sessions with Travis had proven productive. For 2 weeks, she had trained on the isolated back range, her true skills emerging away from surveillance. Travis had watched in astonishment as she consistently hit targets that challenged even the facility's instructors. How did you keep this hidden? He had asked. Practice, she replied simply. The same discipline that makes someone an excellent shooter makes them excellent at controlling when to miss. Now that discipline was being tested. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. They're checking your background. Briggs has a contact at Veterans Affairs. The stakes had escalated beyond her careful planning. If Briggs discovered her military record before she was positioned to expose him, the entire operation would collapse. That evening, she sat in her small apartment surrounded by the evidence she had meticulously gathered. Communications logs showing Briggs had denied critical backup in Nathan's final operation. Testimonies from surviving team members who had since been reassigned to remote postings. Documentation of the edited official report that absolved Briggs of responsibility. All of it useless if she couldn't find a way to present it where it couldn't be buried again. Her phone rang. Travis. They're accelerating the qualifier to tomorrow, he said without preamble. Briggs announced it an hour ago, claiming scheduling conflicts with the venue. It's obviously to prevent you from preparing. I've been barred from the facility. I know, but there's something else. One competitor dropped out with an injury. They're required to maintain the published number of slots for betting purposes. Eleanor understood the implications immediately. They need a replacement. Exactly. And Briggs's assistant let slip they're struggling to find someone qualified on short notice. The opportunity was unexpected but perfect. Can you get me in? Better than that. I can get you registered. My brother works for the Regional Competition Authority. He owes me a favor. For the first time in weeks, Eleanor allowed herself a genuine smile. Do it. After hanging up, she opened the gun safe concealed in her closet. Inside lay her personal weapon, not the rental she'd been using at the range, but the precision sidearm that had accompanied her through 3 tours. She cleaned it methodically, muscle memory taking over. Tomorrow would change everything. Either her mission would succeed, or Briggs would identify her and ensure she never got close again. The carefully constructed facade was about to shatter, one way or another. The morning of the qualifier arrived with a flurry of activity at Precision Point. Competitors checked equipment while officials prepared the specialized course. Eleanor arrived through the staff entrance, accompanied by Travis and his brother Marcus, who wore the blazer of a Regional Competition Authority representative. Remember, Marcus instructed, you're a last-minute replacement approved by the Oversight Committee. I've entered your paperwork in the system, but stay close to me until you're officially processed. They approached the registration desk, where Briggs was reviewing competitor listings. Commander Briggs, Marcus began formally. Marcus Wynn, Regional Oversight. We've registered a replacement for Johnson's slot per regulation requirements. Briggs looked up, his expression shifting from professional to stunned as he recognized Eleanor. Mrs. Morgan. There must be some mistake. She's been barred from. No mistake, sir, Marcus interrupted, offering documentation. Eleanor Morgan's credentials have been verified by the committee. As you know, qualification standards are ultimately determined by the governing body, not individual facilities. Briggs scanned the paperwork, his jaw tightening. These credentials, I don't recognize the certifying body. Military Special Programs, Marcus replied smoothly. Documentation was submitted directly to the committee. Nearby, Donovan approached. What's happening? She can't possibly compete. Eleanor remained silent, maintaining a neutral expression, while Briggs struggled with his limited options. Creating a scene would draw unwanted attention to whatever investigation he'd begun into her background. Fine, he finally said. But she'll need to qualify like everyone else. No special treatment. Of course, Marcus agreed. As they walked toward the preparation area, Donovan followed. This is ridiculous. She can barely hit the target at standard range. Then you have nothing to worry about, Eleanor replied quietly, the first direct challenge she'd offered since arriving at Precision Point. The qualifier consisted of 3 stages: standard precision at varied distances, timed reaction shooting, and stress position accuracy. Competitors would be eliminated after each stage, with only the top 3 advancing to the regional championship. Eleanor prepared methodically, focusing entirely on her equipment while ignoring the whispers and stares. She had carried her own weapon this time, registered and legal, but far superior to the rental guns. Before the first stage began, Briggs approached under the guise of a competitor briefing. I don't know what game you're playing, Morgan, but it ends today, he said under his breath. Your husband's name came up in my inquiries. Interesting coincidence. Operation Shadowfall, wasn't it? The direct reference to Nathan's final mission confirmed Eleanor's suspicions. Briggs recognized the potential threat she posed. Just competing, Commander, she replied evenly. Like everyone else. The first stage began. Competitors took turns at the firing line, their scores displayed on overhead monitors. Donovan performed flawlessly, as expected. Other serious competitors posted respectable scores. When Eleanor's turn came, the range fell unusually quiet. Spectators and competitors alike watched with curiosity or contempt. She took her position, raised her weapon, and for the first time since arriving at Precision Point, allowed her true skill to emerge. 6 shots. 6 perfect bullseyes at varying distances. The scoreboard updated, placing her tied for first with Donovan. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Donovan stared in disbelief. Briggs's expression darkened as he pulled an official aside, gesturing emphatically toward Eleanor. Through it all, Eleanor maintained her focus. The first stage had accomplished exactly what she needed, establishing credibility that couldn't be dismissed. Now, with all eyes on her, she had created the platform necessary for what would come next. Travis appeared briefly beside her during the transition to the second stage. Security officer just got a call to escort you out after this round, he whispered. Briggs is claiming identification discrepancies. You need to move quickly. Eleanor nodded slightly. Then I'd better make this next round count. The second stage, timed reaction shooting, began amid growing tension. Eleanor felt Briggs's gaze following her every move as competitors prepared their stations. She needed to act before he could engineer her removal. Donovan stepped up first, his performance aggressive and confident. His shots were impressively fast and accurate, drawing appreciative murmurs from the audience. As he finished, he turned toward Eleanor with a challenging stare. Try to keep up, Morgan. Oh wait, you won't get the chance. Eleanor glimpsed a security officer hovering at the edge of the competition area, apparently waiting for a signal from Briggs. Her window was closing. When her turn came, she approached the line with deliberate calm. The course required hitting multiple targets that appeared randomly at varied distances. Speed and accuracy were equally weighted. Instead of taking the standard stance, Eleanor adopted the distinctive position taught exclusively to her specialized military unit. Weight slightly forward, modified grip that maximized recoil control. It was a technique few would recognize, except those who had trained alongside her. She completed the course with machine-like precision, her speed exceeding even Donovan's by nearly 2 seconds. Her accuracy was flawless. As the scores updated, placing her firmly in first place, she turned directly toward Briggs. "Recognize that stance, Commander." His face paled slightly. In that technique, he had seen irrefutable confirmation of her military background, not as a soldier's wife, but as an operator herself. Murmurs spread through the crowd as competitors and spectators alike processed the dramatic shift in standings. Donovan approached Briggs, speaking urgently in his ear. The security officer began moving toward Eleanor, but before he could reach her, Travis intercepted him with some administrative question, creating brief confusion. Eleanor used this moment to approach the official's table, where she placed a sealed envelope. "I need to register a formal complaint regarding competitor integrity," she announced, loud enough for nearby spectators to hear. The head official looked startled. "This isn't the appropriate time." "It directly affects this competition," Eleanor continued, "and involves Commander Briggs's professional conduct in previous positions of authority." The statement had the intended effect. Several phones emerged from the audience, recording the unexpected confrontation. Briggs pushed forward through the gathering crowd. "This is inappropriate and irrelevant to the competition," he stated firmly. "Mrs. Morgan is attempting to create a distraction from her imminent disqualification for credential fraud." Eleanor maintained her composure. "The envelope contains documentation of Commander Briggs's actions during Operation Shadowfall 3 years ago, where his decisions directly resulted in the deaths of 6 special operators, including my husband Nathan Morgan." A hush fell over the room. The official looked between them, visibly uncomfortable with the suddenly personal confrontation. Furthermore, Eleanor continued, "I've submitted notarized statements from 2 surviving team members contradicting the official report, which was altered to protect Commander Briggs's reputation. These documents have also been delivered to the Military Review Board and 3 separate journalists this morning." Briggs's expression hardened. "You're making serious allegations without context. Combat decisions were made from a secure position while you denied extraction to wounded personnel," Eleanor finished. "I know because I was on Overwatch assignment for that operation, Commander." Lieutenant Eleanor Morgan, Special Tactical Unit. The revelation landed like a thunderclap. Donovan looked between them in confusion, his certainty visibly crumbling. "She's delusional," Briggs attempted, but his voice lacked conviction. From the crowd, an older man stepped forward, retired General Matthews, a respected figure in military circles whose presence at a local competition suddenly made sense. "I've reviewed the materials Mrs. Morgan submitted to the review board," he stated, his authoritative voice cutting through the tension. "They warrant a full investigation, which I've already authorized." Briggs stood frozen, watching as his carefully constructed reputation began to unravel in real time, in front of the very community where he'd rebuilt his image after leaving the military. The security officer who had been approaching Eleanor now stood uncertainly, awaiting direction that no longer seemed forthcoming. The final stage of the qualifier was delayed as officials huddled in urgent conference. Eleanor stood apart from the other competitors, isolated by the bombshell she had dropped. Donovan paced nearby, casting accusing glances in her direction, while also eyeing Briggs with growing uncertainty. After 20 minutes, the head official emerged. "The competition will continue," he announced. "All registered competitors remain eligible pending any official rulings from appropriate authorities. Personal grievances will be addressed through proper channels after today's event." It was a bureaucratic non-decision, exactly as Eleanor had anticipated. No one wanted to take responsibility for disqualifying her after her public accusations, nor did they want to penalize Briggs without due process. The path of least resistance was to proceed normally. Briggs stood rigid at the sidelines, his authority visibly diminished, yet not entirely extinguished. Eleanor could see him calculating his options, likely concluding that withdrawing would appear as an admission of guilt. The final stage, stress position accuracy, required shooters to fire from awkward, physically demanding positions that simulated combat conditions. It was designed to test mental focus under physical strain, separating true masters from technically proficient shooters. Donovan stepped up first, his earlier cockiness replaced by grim determination. He performed admirably, though not flawlessly, the pressure clearly affecting his usual precision. Two other competitors followed with respectable showings. When Eleanor's turn came, the range fell into complete silence. She approached the line aware that every eye tracked her movements. This moment wasn't just about qualifying for a regional competition. It had become a public referendum on her credibility. The course required shooting from 3 positions: kneeling with dominant hand only, prone with limited visibility, and standing while supporting a weighted barricade. These were positions familiar to any combat veteran, but challenging even for experienced sport shooters. Eleanor moved through each position with the fluid efficiency that comes only from combat experience. Her breathing remained controlled, her focus absolute. Each shot landed precisely where intended, her body remembering postures that had once been necessary for survival rather than sport. As she completed the final shot, the scoreboard confirmed what spectators had already witnessed. She had outperformed every competitor across all 3 stages, her overall score setting a facility record. The victory itself was secondary to what happened next. General Matthews approached Eleanor as she secured her weapon. "Lieutenant Morgan," he said formally, using her military rank publicly for the first time. "I've arranged for a meeting with the military justice liaison at 900 tomorrow. Your documentation will receive proper review." Briggs intervened, attempting to salvage the situation. "General, with all due respect, these accusations are being made without operational context. The decisions in question were made under extreme duress." "Save it for the review, Commander," Matthews cut him off. "I've already spoken with Colonel Harriman and Major Decker, both of whom corroborate Lieutenant Morgan's account." At the mention of those officers, the operation's original commander and intelligence lead, Briggs's remaining composure faltered. These were individuals whose testimony he had assumed would never resurface. "Those officers weren't on site during the critical phase," he protested. "But I was," Eleanor stated firmly. "As was Travis Wynn, your communications specialist who preserved the original transmissions you ordered deleted." Travis stepped forward from among the staff, removing his maintenance uniform cap. "Sorry, Commander. Some orders shouldn't be followed." The public dismantling of Briggs's authority played out before dozens of witnesses, many still recording with their phones. Donovan watched his mentor's implosion with a stunned expression, slowly backing away as if to distance himself from the collapsing narrative. Eleanor holstered her weapon, her vindication not bringing the emotional release she had expected, but rather a somber satisfaction. This public confrontation wasn't just about personal revenge. It was about correcting a record that had dishonored the sacrifice of 6 good soldiers, including her husband. The qualification results stand, the head official announced awkwardly into the silence. Eleanor Morgan advances to the regional championship. The announcement seemed almost trivial now, against the weight of what had just transpired. 6 months after the Precision Challenge qualifier, Eleanor returned to Precision Point, not as a competitor, but as its new head instructor. The facility had undergone significant changes following the investigation triggered by her revelations. Briggs had resigned under pressure when the military review confirmed Eleanor's allegations. The altered mission reports, the denied extraction request, the subsequent cover-up, all verified by multiple witnesses and recovered communications. His carefully constructed reputation had collapsed virtually overnight. Donovan had initially attempted to distance himself, claiming ignorance of Briggs's past. But his years of riding the commander's coattails had left him tainted by association. When sponsors withdrew, he had moved to another state to rebuild his competitive career far from the controversy. Eleanor set her bag down on the instructor's desk that had once been Briggs's and surveyed the morning class, a mixture of veterans, law enforcement, and civilian enthusiasts. Travis, now the facility's operations manager, appeared in the doorway. "Ready for your first official class?" he asked. She nodded, feeling an unexpected sense of closure. The regional championship, which she had won handily, now seemed almost incidental to the justice it had helped deliver. "First group is waiting in the classroom," Travis continued, "including someone you might recognize." Eleanor raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Rebecca Winters." She was married to Staff Sergeant Winters from Nathan's team. Eleanor finished quietly. "I didn't know she lived locally." "She didn't. Moved here last month when she heard you were teaching." In the classroom, Eleanor immediately spotted Rebecca. They had met briefly at a memorial service years earlier. The other woman's eyes held recognition and something more significant, respect. After the session, Rebecca approached while the other students filed out. "I never got the whole story," she said without preamble. "Just that David died on a classified operation." When the review findings became public, she paused. "Thank you for not letting them bury the truth." Eleanor nodded, understanding the particular grief of military widows, the unanswered questions, the carefully worded official statements. "It doesn't bring them back," she acknowledged. "But at least their sacrifice isn't hidden under someone else's lies anymore." Rebecca managed a small smile. "David always said he'd rather have hard truth than comforting fiction." She hesitated. "I signed up for the advanced course next month. Thought it might help me understand his world better." "I'll see you then," Eleanor replied. After Rebecca left, Eleanor returned to the range where it had all begun. General Matthews had kept his word, ensuring the investigation received proper attention despite pressure to handle it discreetly. The corrected record now honored the fallen operator's actions rather than obscuring them to protect Briggs's career. The facility's new owner, a retired Marine with a reputation for integrity, had approached Eleanor with the instructor position after hearing about her background. "We need someone who values truth over image," he had said simply. As she prepared the range for afternoon sessions, a local reporter appeared at the entrance. The story had generated significant media interest, but Eleanor had declined most interview requests. "Lieutenant Morgan, just one question," the reporter called. "After everything that happened, why stay here? Why not return to military service or move somewhere new?" Eleanor considered the question. "Because change happens where you stand your ground," she replied finally. "Not where you run from problems." After the reporter left, Eleanor took a moment alone on the range. She removed a worn photograph from her wallet. Nathan in desert camouflage, smiling despite the harsh conditions. For years after his death, looking at his face had brought only pain and anger. Now finally she could see him without the shadow of injustice darkening the memory. She returned the photo and picked up her weapon, focusing on the target downrange. The perfect shot that had started it all hadn't just exposed Briggs's lies. It had freed her to build something new from the wreckage of the past. Sometimes, she reflected, justice wasn't about destroying the guilty, but about creating space for truth to finally breathe. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.